Imagine burying your husband, only to discover 2 years later he faked his death, stole your life insurance, and left you homeless with 4 kids. What will you do if you find out? This story is not the regular you need to sit, grab a drink to watch to the end. Like, share, and subscribe. In the sweltering heart of Atlanta, Georgia, where the summer humidity wrapped around you like a damp blanket and the constant hum of I-85 traffic drowned out your thoughts, lived a woman named Aisha Johnson. She was 32, with eyes like polished chestnuts and a laugh that could brighten the grittiest corner store. Aisha had married Jamal at 22, a mechanic whose hands were always smudged with engine oil, but whose heart was solid gold. They'd scraped together a life, a small corner store selling snacks, sodas, and soul food staples in their rented apartment complex in Mechanicsville, 4 rambunctious sons, and dreams taller than the skyscrapers downtown. It started with a cough, just a nagging hack that Jamal brushed off as Atlanta pollen. "Ain't nothing, baby," he'd say, grinning as he tinkered with another customer's beat-up Chevy. But Aisha knew better. Mothers always do. By the time they pooled enough for Grady Memorial Hospital, the cough exploded into a fever that scorched him from the inside out. Doctors threw around terms like tuberculosis and secondary pneumonia, frowning at the scans. Treatment? $50,000 up front, plus insurance gaps they barely had. Aisha sold everything: the store's stock of grits and cornbread mix, her gold hoop earrings from their wedding, even the boys' sneakers pawned at the local payday loan spot. Jamal's brothers pitched in a bit initially, but their support vanished quicker than a summer storm. "We got our own families to feed," they'd mutter over the phone from Decatur. Weeks melted into months. Jamal faded right before her eyes, his muscular build shrinking to skin and bones. Aisha juggled bedside vigils by day and slinging boiled peanuts at the Fulton County market by night. Her 4 sons, Ty, Marcus, Caleb, and little Omar, curled up on a futon, murmuring bedtime prayers from Sunday school. One stormy evening, as lightning split the Georgia sky, Jamal drew her close. "Aisha, if I don't make it, you fight for our boys. Promise me." His voice was a rasp, but his grip was iron. She nodded through tears, kissing his forehead. That night, the monitors flatlined. Jamal Johnson was gone at 35, leaving behind a mountain of medical bills, an empty store, and a widow with 4 mouths to feed. The funeral was a modest affair at a community church in East Point. Plastic chairs, a few wilted lilies, gospel hymns echoing off cinder-block walls. Aisha wore her one black dress, holding Omar, as Ty, Marcus, Caleb, and little Omar stared blankly at the wooden casket. Jamal's family showed up in force: his parents, Mama Dee and Pops Johnson, and his 3 brothers, Leroy, Darnell, and Keith, flanked by wives and cousins. They wept loudly, prayed fervently, but something shifted the moment the dirt hit the grave. If you are yet to subscribe, like and share now. This story is profound, and you can afford to keep the lessons alone to yourself. Someone close to you should see this also. Do well to play your quota now, and don't forget to check out other stories on the channel. Thank you. Now let's continue the story. Back at the apartment, while Aisha packed Jamal's clothes for donation, the brothers cornered her in the living room. "This place is in his name, Aisha," Leroy said, arms crossed, his gold chain glinting under the fluorescent light, "and the store lease, too. Family tradition. Everything goes back to the Johnsons." Her heart plummeted. "What? Jamal and I built that together. The boys need—"
Pops Johnson stepped forward, his face etched with false sorrow. "Bible says a good wife submits. We've prayed on it. You're not blood. Time for you to go." They handed her a trash bag with a few outfits, $200 cash for the road, and changed the locks while she stood outside with the boys, rain soaking their clothes. By nightfall, Aisha and her sons were homeless. Atlanta's shelters were full, so they crashed in her cousin's cramped basement in College Park for a week, the boys sharing a pull-out couch while roaches skittered in the corners. But Cousin Keisha had her own drama, 5 kids, a cheating man, and space ran out. "I'm sorry, girl," Keisha whispered, hugging her tight. With $150 left after bus fares, Aisha bought a tent from Walmart and set up in a wooded patch behind a strip mall off Campbellton Road. Shanty life in the South, humid nights buzzing with mosquitoes, days scavenging for day-old bread at food banks. Ty skipped school to watch his brothers, Marcus wet the sleeping bag from nightmares, Caleb cried for daddy's ribs, and Omar just clung to her leg. Aisha hustled odd jobs, cleaning offices at dawn, braiding hair for $10 a head, but the bills collectors called non-stop. Mrs. Johnson, $62,000 due immediately. 3 weeks in, despair clawed at her soul. One muggy Tuesday, as she foraged cans for recycling near a gas station, a sleek black Escalade pulled up. Out stepped Marcus Hale, a sharply dressed man in his early 40s, salt and pepper beard, exuding quiet power. He was returning from a business meeting, spotted her rummaging, and something stirred in him, memories of his own rough start. "Ma'am, you okay?" His voice was deep, southern drawl smooth as bourbon. Aisha straightened, wiping sweat from her brow. "Just making it, God bless." He glanced at the boys playing nearby with sticks. "Those yours? Look like they could use a meal." Before she could protest, he bought them all KFC, fried chicken, biscuits, and mac and cheese, the first hot food in days. As they ate on a picnic table, he listened to her story without interruption. No pity, just nods.
"I'm Marcus Hale," he said finally. "Own a few auto shops around here. Real estate, too. Lost my wife to cancer 5 years back. Know what it's like to rebuild from nothing." Aisha's eyes widened. She'd heard of him, self-made millionaire, philanthropist who funded community centers. That meal turned into a lifeline. Marcus paid off the medical debt that night. Consider it an investment in good. Rented them a cozy 2-bedroom in Cascade Heights, enrolled the boys in school with uniforms and supplies. He sponsored Ty's football dreams with private coaching, got Marcus into art classes, Caleb's soccer camp, and Omar preschool. Aisha? He hired her as store manager for his flagship auto parts shop, teaching her the business ropes. Months passed. Marcus became family, Sunday barbecues with ribs and collards, holidays with his grown daughter visiting from Spelman. Aisha's heart mended. Laughter returned. One crisp fall evening, under twinkling string lights on his back porch, Marcus got down on one knee. "Aisha Johnson, you've brought light back to my world. Marry me." Tears streamed as she said yes. The wedding was intimate, family, friends, the boys as ring-bearers, at a vineyard outside Marietta. Life bloomed, a blended family of 6, vacations to Myrtle Beach, college funds stacking up. Aisha's shanty days felt like a distant nightmare. But twists, as they do in Atlanta stories, wait in the shadows. 2 years into marital bliss, Aisha found an old burner phone in Jamal's toolbox, tucked behind rusty wrenches in Marcus's garage. Jamal's shop equipment had merged into the business. Curiosity piqued. Why keep it? She powered it on. Missed calls from years ago, then a voicemail from the day Jamal died.
"Jamal, it's Dr. Ellis from Grady. Your test results, not TB. Stage 4 lung cancer, but experimental treatment at Emory could buy time. Call back ASAP. Her blood ran cold. Cancer, not TB. Family meeting tonight. Family meeting the night before the flatline. Digging deeper, Aisha uncovered bank records Marcus had digitized from the old store. Jamal had taken out a $100,000 life insurance policy 6 months before getting sick. Beneficiary, the Johnson Family Trust, controlled by Pops and the brothers. Payout, confirmed, received 3 days after the funeral. Her hands shook as she pieced it together. Jamal hadn't died of TB complications. He'd been misdiagnosed or hidden the truth. But the flatline night? Hospital logs, hacked via a PI she hired discreetly, showed Jamal discharged against medical advice at 10 p.m., alive, under a fake name, driven away by Leroy. The twist hit like a freight train. Jamal was alive, faked his death with his family's help to cash the policy, pay off their debts, Pop's gambling, brothers' bad investments, and abandon her and the boys. They'd staged the body, a John Doe from the morgue, swapped records via a crooked orderly. Marcus, he'd known peripherally through business ties, but kept quiet out of respect for Aisha's fresh start, until now. Confrontation night, Aisha drove to Pops Johnson's house in Decatur, Marcus at her side, PI evidence in hand. The brothers scattered like roaches, but Jamal emerged from the back room, gaunt but breathing, eyes hollow. "Aisha, I did it for the family legacy," he stammered. "You and the boys were holding me back." Her voice was steel. "Legacy, you killed us to save yourself." Police sirens wailed soon after. Insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud. Jamal and his kin faced 20 years. Aisha walked free, richer in justice and love. Today, Aisha Hale runs a chain of community stores. Her son's thriving, Ty on scholarship at Georgia Tech, Marcus exhibiting art downtown, Caleb pro soccer hopeful, Omar top of his class. Aisha and Marcus happier than ever, proof that destiny helpers rewrite endings. But the real twist? In the final insurance trial, it emerged Jamal had spotted Marcus's escalade weeks before the death. Jealous of his success, he'd plotted to frame Marcus too, until karma flipped the script.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And so Aisha Hale stands today as Atlanta's unbreakable queen, a self-made mogul whose empire of 20 stores employs over 200 families, funds scholarships for 100 young dreamers every year, and echoes one life-changing mantra everywhere her name is spoken. Pain plants the seed, purpose waters it. But the real beauty of her story was never the luxury cars, the magazine covers, or the applause that followed her success. It was the quiet moments no one saw, the nights she cried herself to sleep, wondering if survival was enough, the mornings she forced a smile for her sons when her heart was still bleeding, and the prayers whispered over empty pockets and impossible odds. Years later, the same woman who once stood abandoned in a rain-soaked shanty now walks hand in hand with Marcus beneath golden Atlanta sunsets, laughter from grandchildren filling the spaces where pain once lived. The woman who was once rejected became the very definition of restoration, not because life became easy, but because she refused to let bitterness write the final chapter of her story. Her old neighborhood still remembers her. Mothers point at her billboards and tell their daughters, "See that woman? She started with nothing but faith." Young boys who once thought the streets were their only future now wear uniforms paid for by her foundation. Broken women sit in her mentorship programs and leave believing they can rise again too. And every year, on the anniversary of the night her world collapsed, Aisha visits the small rundown street where it all began, not to mourn her past, but to honor the woman who survived it. Because she learns something powerful. Sometimes God allows the breaking so the rebuilding can reveal who you truly are. Her life now screams one undeniable truth. When betrayal digs your grave, faith builds your throne. When life says it's over, purpose whispers, "Watch me begin." And when darkness thinks it has buried you, it may have only planted you. So if you're watching or listening to this while holding the shattered pieces of your own story, remember this: endings are often disguises for beginnings. The pain you carry today may become the testimony that saves someone tomorrow. What's your twist waiting to unleash? Share your story below, because the next transformation the world needs to hear might be yours.
20 years is a long time. Long enough for a boy of 10 to become a man of 30. Long enough for a 4-year-old who once clung to his mother's leg in the rain to grow taller than the man who abandoned him. Long enough for 4 sons who went to sleep in a tent behind a strip mall to wake up one day in lives their younger selves wouldn't have dared to dream about. 20 years is a long time. But inside the walls of a federal correctional facility in Georgia, 20 years is something else entirely. Jamal Johnson entered Hancock State Prison in the autumn, convicted on 4 counts: insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, falsification of death records, and abandonment of dependents. His brothers, Leroy, Darnell, and Keith, went in right behind him, accessories to every single count. Their father, Pops Johnson, the man who had stood in Aisha's living room quoting scripture while plotting to put her and 4 children on the street, received 18 years, reduced to 15 for cooperation with the prosecution. The Johnson men walked into that courtroom as a unit, suits pressed, lawyers paid, confident in the particular way of men who had always believed that consequences were for other people. They did not walk out that way. Inside, the story of what they had done preceded them, in a facility populated largely by black men from the same Atlanta streets they came from, men who had mothers, who had children, who understood exactly what it meant to put a woman and 4 boys in a tent. The Johnson name carried no weight. It carried shame. And in prison, shame has a cost that no lawyer can reduce. Leroy, who drove the car the night Jamal faked his death, spent the first 3 years in protective custody after a confrontation that left him with a fractured jaw and a permanent reminder that some things, even inside those walls, are considered unforgivable. Darnell, the youngest of the brothers, broke down in the 2nd year. He requested a chaplain. He wrote letters to Aisha that she never opened. He wrote letters to the boys that Marcus Hale, in a quiet act of protection, intercepted before they could reach them. Not out of cruelty, out of the understanding that a child's healing should not be interrupted by the needs of the person who caused the wound. Keith stopped eating for a period in year 4. Not dramatically, not in the way that makes headlines, but quietly, in the way of a man whose body has simply decided it is no longer interested in continuing. He was placed in the medical unit. He recovered. He came out thinner and quieter and different in the particular way that prison makes certain men, different, not rehabilitated exactly, but emptied of something that had once made them capable of harm. And Jamal,
Jamal Johnson spent the first 5 years of his sentence in a specific kind of hell that has no official name, but that every man who has ever truly reckoned with what he has done will recognize. It is the hell of full clarity, of lying on a bunk in the dark and being unable to escape the specific, detailed memory of his youngest son's face. Omar, 4 years old, clinging to his mother's leg outside a locked apartment, of knowing that he chose this, that nobody forced his hand, that at every single point where he could have turned back, he kept going. He kept choosing himself. He kept choosing the family legacy, the insurance money, the escape, over the woman who had sold her wedding earrings to keep him alive, and the 4 boys who had prayed for him from a futon. He requested educational programming in year 6. He completed his GED, which he had never finished in the chaos of his young adult life, then an associate's degree through the prison's partnership with a technical college. He became, in the second decade of his sentence, a peer counselor for newly incarcerated men, particularly those who had committed financial crimes against their own families, which is a more specific and more populated category than most people realize. The prison chaplain wrote in Jamal's final assessment before his parole hearing, "This man has done genuine work. I do not say this lightly, and I do not say it as advocacy for release. I say it as observation. He understands what he did. More importantly, and this is rare, he understands why. The why is where the real danger lives in a person, and the why has been confronted. What he does with the confrontation is between him and God and the family he destroyed." He was released on a Tuesday morning in October, 20 years and 11 days after he had climbed into his brother Leroy's car, alive, while a hospital somewhere in Atlanta logged his discharge under a fake name. He was 55 years old, gaunt in the permanent way of men who have served long sentences, not the illness gaunt of the man Aisha had watched deteriorate in that hospital bed, but the specific thinning that comes from years of institutional food and institutional light, and the physical cost of carrying something heavy for 2 decades without being able to put it down. Leroy was released 8 months later. Darnell had been out for 3 years on early release for good behavior. He had, in prison, become genuinely religious in the way that is different from performance, and had been working with a church outreach program in Decatur since his release, quietly, without fanfare, without asking for recognition. Pops Johnson had died in year 12 of his sentence, a stroke, alone in the medical unit, no family present, because the family was all inside other units of the same system. Jamal did not reach out immediately. He had made himself that promise in year 15, that if he ever got out, he would not rush toward his sons for his own comfort, that he would not make his need for forgiveness their burden. He got a room in a transitional housing facility in East Point. He found work, construction, ironically, through a re-entry program. He attended group. He called his parole officer every week without fail. He rebuilt in miniature the ordinary discipline of a life. And then, 8 months after his release, he wrote a letter. Not to Aisha. He understood that Aisha owed him nothing, not her attention, not her forgiveness, not even the dignity of a response. He wrote to Ty Johnson, who was now 30 years old, who had graduated from Georgia Tech on a football scholarship, who had become in the years since a structural engineer at a firm downtown, who had Marcus Hale's steady mentorship for 20 years and his mother's backbone running through everything he did, who was 10 years old on the night his father disappeared and 13 when the truth came out in a courtroom, and had sat in that gallery and watched them take Jamal away in handcuffs and not cried, not once, not in public. The letter said, "I know I have no right to your time.
I know I have no right to call myself your father after what I did. I am not asking for anything. I only want you to know that there is not a day in 20 years that I have not thought about the 4 of you, that the weight of what I chose is something I will parry for the rest of my life. You do not owe me forgiveness. You do not owe me a response. I only wanted you to know that I know, and that I am sorry, truly, whatever that is worth coming from me, which may be nothing and that would be right and fair. I am sorry.
Ty read the letter twice. He folded it. He placed it in a drawer. He did not respond for 6 weeks. Then he called his brothers. Marcus, 28, whose art now hung in 2 galleries in Atlanta and 1 in Brooklyn, listened to the letter being read aloud and was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Does he want something from us, or does he just want to say it?" Caleb, 26, who had played semi-professional soccer for 4 years before a knee injury redirected him into sports coaching, said, "It doesn't matter what he wants. What do we want?" Omar, who was now 24, top of his class in his final year of law school, who had been 4 years in the rain and had no memory of his father that was not second-hand, said nothing for a while. Then he said, "I want to know if he's real. People can write letters. Letters are easy. I want to know if the person who wrote that letter is the same person who gets up every morning." They did not respond to the letter as a group. They made no collective decision, but 2 of the 4 brothers, quietly, privately, without telling their mother initially, agreed to a single meeting, just one, in a public place. No promises, no expectations, just a meeting. And Marcus Hale, the man who had found them behind a gas station 20 years ago, who had paid off the debt and opened the door and become, in every meaningful sense, the father these boys had been owed, sat with Aisha when she found out, and he said something that only a truly secure man could say. "Whatever they decide, I support it. My place in their lives doesn't depend on what they do with his. I am not in competition with a ghost. Let them decide for themselves." Aisha held that for a long time, and then she said something that nobody expected. She said, "I already forgave him, not for him, for me. I forgave him somewhere around year 8 in the quiet of a Tuesday morning when I realized I was happy, truly, completely happy, and the only thing standing between me and the full experience of that happiness was the energy I was still spending on hating him. So I put it down. I forgave him in private, and I never told anyone because it was mine and not his. He doesn't get to receive my forgiveness as a gift. It was something I did for myself." She paused. "But forgiveness and access are 2 completely different things. I forgave him. That doesn't mean he gets to walk back into the room." And that is where the story stands today. 4 brothers, 4 different answers forming. A man standing at the edge of lives he forfeited, asking, without demanding, for perhaps the first time in his life, to be allowed to exist somewhere in the periphery of the people he hurt most. Ty has not decided yet. Marcus has not decided yet. Caleb says he needs more time. And Omar, the lawyer, the youngest, the one who was 4 years in the rain, has been the most surprising of all. Because Omar, who has the sharpest mind of the 4 and the most precise relationship with justice, said this: 20 years is what the law decided. The law is satisfied, but I am not the law. I am his son, and those are 2 completely different jurisdictions. He hasn't decided yet either. So, I want to ask you, and I want you to think about this seriously before you answer, because it is not a simple question, even though it sounds like one. If you were one of these sons, if you had been 4 years in the rain, if you had grown up knowing your father chose money over your life, if you had built something extraordinary from the ruins of what he left behind, would you open that door? Should a man who served his time, who did the work, who is standing quietly at the edge asking for nothing, should he get a second chance at the relationship he destroyed? Or is there a category of betrayal so complete, so deliberate, so targeted at the most innocent version of you that existed, that no amount of time and no amount of changed behavior earns the right to re-entry? Tell me what you think in the comments, because this family needs to hear from people who have been through something, from people who have had to make this decision or are making it right now. Should the door open? Like, comment, share, and subscribe.